So this is more a story about grace than about how dark that time was. But I wrote out all that stuff. And for some reason, when that happened, when I finished that, there was a weight that had been lifted. So let's say grace had knocked on the door or something. Yeah. And in hindsight, I think what kind of presented itself there was I wrote down all of my material things. Okay. Material things have become a big issue for me because I was addicted to money as well and work. So I was constantly trying to build up my identity to make more money because I was a musician. Yeah. So once I wrote down all my things, I felt like there was some relief. Yeah. Also, the acceptance that I could just end my life and maybe that would end the suffering that was going on in my head also gave me like a little taste of relief. And I don't know why this click happened, but it just was that the body and the mind were still alive and there was a little bit of relief amongst a ton of non-relief. Yeah. So in hindsight, I think what had happened was I wrote that stuff down. That lifted a little bit of weight, but it also lifted because at that point I was willing to take my life to get out of the suffering. It lifted the weight of the identity that I was carrying around. Yeah, because it was just like, well, I could just end all of this at any moment in a way. Yeah, so all of the things that seemingly were weighing me down, objects, let's say material objects, which are tied to an ownership of Jay being this thing, and that's how Jay gets objects. All of that was put down at one time. And then there was a lightness there. Yeah, so I think that's what maybe I call grace. Yeah, even though it comes through the fact that I'm at that point willing and really like that's when it became an option. Like, okay, I can end my life. I know that. I know how to do it. I wrote down everything. Yeah, it was almost through that it showed me that, oh, I see. Yeah, a lot of the weight is coming from the identity and the objects and the trying to get that. It's like Ramana Maharshi, the Indian sage. When he was young, he had this thing happen where he thought he was going to die. I don't know if it was a heart thing or something happened to his body. So he laid down and he essentially acted out his own death. Yeah. And what he came to understand was that if the body's dead, the breath is gone, the brain is gone, there's something left. Yeah. There's some field of awareness, let's say beingness, that was left. So he came to determine that that was his true nature, let's say. The thing for Ramana Maharshi is it never went back. The mind never claimed it over again. Yeah. It never it never returned back to like attaching to a separate selfness. Right? So essentially what I think I'm trying to get at here is that a lot of that suffering and all of that weight comes from an identity. And the identity starts with the thought I, with the I thought, with the concept, let's say the grabbing on to the thinking mind. That's where that all starts. Yeah, so when I'm willing to kill myself and end, let's say, the body and the mind, essentially what that opens up to me, or at least as far as I can understand it from what my experience is, what that opened up to me is that I'm not that. Because if I can just kill myself and be free of it, then I'm not that. And there was a little bit of relief right there, and the body and the mind were still alive. So the concept then kind of popped up like, well, okay, there must be a way to be free while I'm alive. Yeah. What's not making me free right now is my attachment to the objects and my attachment to the idea that I'm the one who has the objects. It's through that willingness that that's what I'm saying is that there's something grace that pops in for me at that point and I don't know why, but there was a relief. But I was still alive, you see? So the concept of okay, well maybe there's a way to have relief while I without killing myself.
Hmm.
Maybe. Yeah. And then right after that comes, well, why am I not getting relief? Because one, I'm attached to all of this stuff and I'm trying to uphold these identities that I'm carrying around all the time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Two, I already knew about the things that had happened to me in the past, like the abuse and whatever else had gone on. So if I up if I can uproot those identities, yeah, then I'm also uprooting the ownership of the trauma, let's say, the ownership of the abuse. Because if I kill myself, that also goes away. Yeah.
Mhm.
If I kill myself, the body goes away. So all of the struggles that I have with the body go away. The stuff goes away. The identities all go away. But by writing out the list, yeah, and just having enough suffering to be willing to do it, it went away, but I was still alive. Which was the highlighting factor that I'm not that there's something else. And it highlights what is causing me all the issues, which is the identification as this thing, getting these things, having these problems, blah, 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 blah. The whole thing comes out of the identification that I am this thing. You see, that's the root basis. And when you're willing to kill yourself, that gets uprooted really quick, right? So it's like when I read the Ramana Maharshi story, he played through his own death, and even at the end of the play, there was some beingness left. So he came to the realization, I think, that I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, because if all of those things die, there's still something left.
Mhm.
You see? So it's by writing it out, by playing it through in a way, or maybe for me, I guess it was just like being willing. Yeah, there was a drop right there of relief. And that relief came with a lot of information that I'm not this shit, I'm not these identities. Yeah? Because if once I was willing to kill myself, those all dropped and I felt better, at least for a little bit. That was the opening of a big door of of questioning, I think, at least.
Mhm.
Yeah. So then where's the non-duality part sit in? The non-duality part is that I'm not all of that stuff. Yeah, and I'm not the identity which is holding that up, the J thought. Yeah, because if I'm not that, which is the basis of where the suffering comes from, yeah, we're pretty much uprooting the whole thing. The basis of suffering because I'm sticking to this solid idea of an identity which I'm not. There's a beingness there. Yeah. The identity's happening, the Janus is going on. There's thoughts, there's emotions, all of that stuff is going. There's objects, but when it comes to the suffering that we're talking about and the level of relief we're talking about, the thing that hits or is the basis of all of the suffering is the ownership of it. It's trying to make a noun out of all kinds of verbing, is one way to put it. There's a bunch of action happening, and because of that, it's giving me the idea that I am something that's experiencing the action. When really there's just action, and then there's what you are, which is beingness or the vast awareness. And how do we access that? By negating. Yeah, by negating what we can perceive, essentially, which is in a way what the willingness to kill myself was doing. And writing everything down, it was negating, without me knowing it, it was negating what I'm not. Because if I was to commit suicide at that point, I'm killing everything that I'm not, which is what's making life so miserable at that time. And, you know, or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's almost like it was its own process of negation. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff that's not mine. I'm going to get rid of these thoughts if I kill myself that aren't mine. I'm going to get rid of this body which is not mine. Yeah, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that. And then just the willingness of the whole thing, Yeah, that's where the relief came in, because it was a drop of everything that I'm not. And then by understanding that I'm not that, there's a relief, because I don't have to carry it around anymore. Yeah, I don't have to carry around the identity. I don't have to carry around the attachment to the objects. I don't have to carry around the ideas of what happened to me or who I am, because that's what makes the weight. It's like really making a lot of effort to be a person is exhausting.
Mm.
It's like it's a lot. Yeah, to be being is not. It takes no effort at all.
Mm.
Yeah, it's almost like that's the first addiction, is grabbing onto trying to be something.
Mm.
It's in that constant effort of trying to be one thing or getting away from something else. That's what causes a lot of the friction in my experience of living, of the discomfort, this irritability, discomfort. Yeah, all of these things come from, like, I got to get out of this thing and I got to get into this thing. Yeah, but it's just that is just more movement. It's just more thought. It's just more concept. It's just more things that we grab onto and try to maneuver as something that we're not.